Okay guys, Amy's standing by the fountain, but we're gonna wait until we get some people, but we are live, so FYI to you. Here, I'm gonna tour until we get some people. I'm just gonna scan around. So we are in the Knot Garden, if I remember that correctly, at Brumby Hall. Hi Jan. Some of the guys from city grounds and crew are here working, so if you hear some background noises and talking, that's them. They already got us with their fountain or their irrigation system yesterday or earlier. It works, by the way. This is the back side of Brumby Hall, if you guys aren't familiar. Hi Sally. Hi Steve. The irrigation works here, Steve's just FYI to you. So yeah, this is the back garden, the knot garden. You could tell from the knot work done in the patio area that we are in. So Amy's over here by the fountain. I think we're gonna get ready, Amy. We got about 9 people right now. I'm gonna get a little bit closer. Oh my gosh, see, they're yelling. It's Friday, y'all. Fun Friday. So where are we at again? I just told you, but let's just.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
You
You.
have to come closer because I don't think they'll be able to hear.
All right. Steve, let me know if you have trouble hearing Amy. Trying to maintain that social distance too.
Yeah, we're maintaining, but there's wind. So.
Yeah, so let us
so
know.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
It's May 1st too.
Ooh,
Welcome to May.
1st. All right. Yes, we are at Brumby, the Brumby Hall,
Yes,
House and
Hall,
Gardens.
yes.
As part of the city property here next to the Marietta Hilton Conference Center and Marietta City Club on the other side over there. And we're in the back of the house. We're going to walk around to the front in just a little bit, but we're in the back of the house in one of the beautiful garden areas that the city's been working hard to restore and bring back for people to enjoy. But it's such a beautiful day, we thought, let's just go to the gardens. And this property is extremely historic. The house itself is the only building of many that were built for the Georgia Military Institute here in Marietta in 1851. And the house itself was first used as a superintendent's house by Superintendent Brumby, which is why we call it the Brumby House. And as we go along today, we'll kind of walk around the gardens, let you see some of how beautiful it is around here, but also give you little bits of history of the connection to the Civil War and a little bit later, with the house. And yeah, so that's what I think we're
And the
gonna do
house
today.
is the current home to?
Oh, the Marietta Gone with the Wind Museum.
Yes.
Yes. And so we are, because our public buildings are closed, we are going to not go in the museum today. Maybe we can arrange a tour of that museum another day.
I think they've been doing little tours on the city's website,
Okay,
so yeah.
Good. Good. Yes, yes. So, and the Gone with the Wind Museum used to be next door to us on the square, and they moved out here, and really I think this is a much better spot because this is an antebellum home. It's not exactly the same architecture that Terra or 12 Oaks was, but it's an authentic home pre-war, which ties in with their museum. So so it's a great little museum, great family trip out here. Not only will you see some memorabilia from the movie on the inside, but you could also explore the gardens on the outside. So yeah, like I said, the house was built in 1851 by Reynolds Brumby, and he came here to be superintendent of the Military Institute. So they started this, it was the very first military college in Georgia. So in the 1850s, people around the state realized they wanted somewhere to send their boys to train, different from VMI or West Point. And so they tried to get the state's involvement in opening a school, and the state wasn't ready to do that yet. So a group of men, influential and wealthy and politicians from Marietta, banded together and created this board of trustees, essentially, and pooled their funds together and raised some funds, and they built the Institute. The first year it opened, I think it only had like 7 cadets.
Something like that, yeah.
But by the next year, and that's in 1852, I think was the first year.
Yeah.
By the next year after that, they had gone to 150, and I think at maximum capacity they were at about 200 cadets. And they were basically training these boys to become soldiers for the Georgia militia, and then eventually moving on into, at that point, the United States military if they so choose.
I think the age range was like almost high school through college. It could be like, it was like 16, was it maybe a little bit younger?
14. It was 14 through 25.
Yeah, so it's a big age range.
The age range was 14 to 25. Typically, it was because of the expenses of sending them here, especially since it was a private school. Most of the students here cadets were wealthier. However, they did create a board governed by the governor that gave him discretion, and the people he chose to appoint, I think, 10 cadets that could come on a scholarship.
Yeah.
So if there were 10 young men in the state that they really thought had potential.
Well, I think it branched out later. It wasn't just Georgia boys. So,
yeah, you're right. It's all over the South. Yeah. That's true. It was all over the South. We do have a picture of it in its heyday. Let's see if I can find that.
There's no photograph.
Yeah, no photograph.
Yeah,
I should say. Yes, you're right. This is a drawing. So there are a couple of drawings out there. Some are more contemporary, looking back. Some were drawn during the Civil War when soldiers came through. This was, I believe, from a Harper's Weekly, which was during the Civil War, so probably around 1864. Well, probably around 1863, 64. You can see the property here. Now, the house, I'm turned around. Is
the house would have been over on this side.
Yeah, you don't see the house
is
we're
not
at.
over
It's
there.
down here. So behind us, where the Hilton is now, that's these kind of buildings. You'd see dormitory buildings back here. This was the instructional building. There was an armory. There was a cafeteria. There were a couple other buildings, and then they had their drill field, of course, where they would do their regular drills 1 or 2 hours a day between classes. I'm a graduate of North Georgia College and State University, or now maybe it's just North Georgia University. I don't know what they call it now, but that's...
Sorry, I had a ladybug in my pocket. I don't know how I got in my pocket, but sorry.
That's right. That is a similar setup now. If you want to go see cadets in a college setting drilling like that, they do regular drills up in North Georgia and Dahlonega, similar. So it's kind of that kind of idea here, but it was male only. They would, however, get time off to go into town to socialize. They would have dances and parades, and we do have some letters back at the museum from some of the local ladies who would, or cadet letters from the cadets to the local ladies trying to woo them, and I think occasionally they'd take day trips, group dates up to Kennesaw Mountain. Yeah. Just that kind of thing. But do you want to walk around as we...
Do you want to, hold on, let's, really quick, let's show them that picture of Brumby so they get an idea of what he looks like. This is a repro, and I believe the actual image, the other painted image, is inside the building, if I remember correctly. But this is an image that we have. There he is. Very dapper looking.
That's Arnoldus.
Arnoldus, yeah. That's a name.
Arnoldus,
and yes, he is, the Brumby chair people are, I believe it's like their great uncle. It's not grandfather. It's yeah.
But it's there are relations.
There are relations for sure.
Yeah, and I've got a couple other. Here's another drawing of the front of the building. Just a different. It's still another sketch, but you can kind of get an idea of the scope.
Yeah, and one of the before we move on, one of the reasons that they picked that Marietta was a good location. One is because we had the railroad right here. So it was easy for the cadets or whatever to get to what's the word I'm looking for? Travel. That's the word. And then also Marietta was a hot spot for education at that point. I think it was like 6 different schools, but we just didn't have a higher ed like they needed. So that's what happened with bringing GMI in. Our fellas are leaving. But yeah, let me make sure. Yeah, so this is the knot garden that we were just in.
Okay. We're going to walk around to the front of the house, to the front porch. Maybe you guys can see. We can read a few things there.
That was quick.
We're live, baby.
Hi, guys. Here's our fellas working hard. So this garden up here right now that we're coming to is the Topiary Garden. Not very topiary-ish right now, but the guys have been cleaning it, getting a lot of that underbrush out, and putting in irrigation, but we'll walk back through here a little bit later. But yeah, you can see kind of the wings here of the house. And Brumby actually moved in with his wife and I think 5 kids. And then they had a few more while they were living here during that time. I'm just following Amy. She's leading me towards the front. We'll find it. There's the carriage house. It's getting renovated too. So, oh, here we go. We're out front. The road that you're hearing, if you guys can hear it, is Powder Spring Street. So that's what we're facing, if you're not familiar. Here we go. Yeah. So let's get over here just a little bit. See the nice little lawn. The cemetery is actually, my favorite spot is actually just through the trees across the road.
Yeah.
So, there we go. It is kind of loud. Maybe if we move over to the corner there, I can kind of get a shot behind you. We're really good at finding these loud spots. Quiet ones are not our forte. And then the parking lot to the Hilton is just past there. Motorcycles are out. It's the day to be out. So yeah, step back. Yeah, let me just get this shot of the building and we'll step back. So there's all these little pathways and stuff through the gardens that Amy and I, the last time we were here, were going through. So once this all gets done, you guys are gonna get to have a real treat kind of going through. I think we're in the maze garden if I'm not mistaken. It looks like a maze, but you know what? I can actually get out of this one, so that's good. So yeah, we're over to the side. Here's another shot on the side of the building. So yeah.
So we're standing back here. Hopefully you can hear a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so.
So the soldiers trained here until, of course, they were still here during the Civil War when, let's see, first in 1863, the Confederate Army came into town and they started changing a lot of the buildings around town into hospitals. And GMI, of course, because of its setup as a school, was a good spot for that. So our building as well, the Marietta, the History Museum, and the Kennesaw House was used as well. But so they used GMI first. The Confederate Army used them as a hospital, mainly for soldiers that were being wounded up in Tennessee and Chattanooga, in that area. They would bring them down the railroad and bring them here to one of the Confederate hospital headquarters here in Marietta, and take care of them out here. And then I've got, while that was going on, a letter. I did bring a copy of a letter. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's stated September 23rd, 1863, and it's to Miss Julia Montgomery from S. Montgomery, who was a cadet here, and she's his mother. He's writing home to his mother, and he gives a description, a brief description of some of the hospitals being taken over. This is, again, September of 1863. So the cadets are still here in town, but the hospitals are also using some of the buildings. It says, the hospitals downtown have cleared of the sick, all having been sent lower down, and preparations are being made to receive the wounded. 700 wounded passed down yesterday, and I suppose about twice as many more last night. About 700 Yankee prisoners also passed down yesterday. I have lately seen a sample how they bury dead soldiers. About 30 have been buried here in the last 2 weeks, most of whom were killed in a collision of trains about 20 miles from here. Do you want to cut in and tell the collision? Wasn't that the collision of trains that started the Confederate cemetery? Or
when was that?
63,
Sorry.
September 23rd.
Yeah, but they were. Yeah, I don't know that story very well, to be honest.
Okay, I think that's the same story. There was a collision of trains. Now we'll tell you if we're wrong.
No, I won't.
You'll tell us if we're wrong. I know people watching this will let us know if we're wrong. But if it's the same story, there was a train accident and 20 wounded or killed soldiers ended up coming down here, and they, the Glovers, donated some land where the Confederate cemetery is, and that was the start of the Confederate cemetery, where these soldiers that were buried there from that train.
Yeah, so the cemetery, the older section, imagine it being bordered on both sides by Glover land, and then the Glovers first giving what is the Confederate cemetery, and then later the new section. So
okay, so it's this gets into a little bit of detail, but he says they dig a small hole just large enough to hold a box which contains the corpse, and it's placed about 2 feet under the ground. The graves have no protection against hogs, dogs, or anything of the kind. I think it's a shame that as they have plenty of time and place to bury them. You wrote to me to see what it would cost to have my clothes cut and made here. I cannot see about this until Saturday. I think it would be a much better arrangement as I could get them to sooner and better fit from you. So, anyways, he goes on to talk to his mama, but that's just a brief mention of the Institute as the Confederate hospital. So then, of course, we know the Confederates were in and out of town until about May of '64, and they all leave town. They're running
South.
south. They're going ahead of the Union Army that's coming in. And so then the Union Army comes in behind them after the battles in and around the Atlanta campaign, the battles in and around Kennesaw Mountain. The Union Army occupies Marietta in June of '64, and they use again the same buildings as hospitals for wounded. And so again, the Institute, GMI, is used as a hospital for the Union soldiers at that point. And then they stay until November. The Union soldiers occupy the town of Marietta and this whole site until November of '64. And then in November, as they're leaving town, they are on orders to destroy all the buildings that could be utilized by the Confederate Army. And so, of course, the school was one of the major ones.
Before you get to that, I know what you're going to read.
Okay.
Also, in July of 1864, GMI was the site of a holding area site for the mill women, the Roswell Sweetwater women. So that's how this site plays into that story as well. This was like the holding area before they were brought to the square and taken on the trains north.
Yes, so the Roswell mill women were kidnapped by the Union Army in Roswell. Like she said, marched down Roswell Road here to Marietta, kept here for a little while at the Institute, and then walked up to the train depot in Marietta, put on a train up to Indiana. Ohio,
yeah.
I think that area, and basically dropped off and said, okay, ladies, you're out of the Confederacy, you're on your own. And
Well, I think they made them work in the mills up there too, right? Is that what you
that
just...
was an option.
Okay.
They didn't make them, but I think that was an option
Gotcha.
for, a job, because that's what they did. That's what they knew. And so they didn't have the funds to come back home to travel, the means or the funds to travel back home to their families, so they just stayed up there. Many of them just married men up there and started new lives.
And we've seen newspaper articles later, ads looking for those women down here, so that's been very interesting. But you were saying November, Sherman's order to burn.
Yes. So this is from, I believe, Minerva McClatchy's.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, this is from Minerva McClatchy's journal that she took. She lived in town. Their house wasn't far from here, but I don't remember exactly.
I don't know the exact location.
It was close enough to where they could see the Institute.
I feel like it was just down the street,
Yeah,
but
I think so, down Powder Springs Street a little bit. And so she journaled. She talked about being, utilizing the doctors that were here during the war to help with her son who was ill, and then one of her sons was a cadet here also.
I think two actually. The two oldest ones were.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she had a connection with this, and then also during occupation, the soldiers that were stationed here would also be sent out occasionally to guard homes of locals around town to help protect them from riffraff or whatever. And so she had some guards. Let's see if I can find this.
She didn't highlight like she should
It's
have.
highlighted, but it's not the right.
Oh.
Okay. All right, so talking about the Institute, it says, I had no trouble coming back. The guard attended me to the line. There are 10,000 men there sick, wounded, and attendants. Tents, bush arbors, and bunks everywhere. The place looks nothing like the residence of Colonel Brumby. The doctor's headquarters are in his house. The Institute buildings are full, and the whole yard is covered with tents, full also. They seemed very cheerful. I passed by them and stopped a moment to look. The tents were long and open at both ends, with 2 rows of cots in each, every one full of wounded. As soon as they are able, they let them walk about the neighborhood. They come to our house, some of them every hour of the day. So that's just telling you a little bit about soldiers being in the hospitals here. So what we're gonna do, I think, I've got some pictures of today.
Yep.
To show you we have any questions? We got some more stories.
I don't have any questions. Hi,
comments?
Bill. Glad to have you on.
Okay. I did grab from our files, and a lot of this stuff is in our research files at the museum. We have a lot of vertical files of research on a variety of topics. You guys can always come when we open back up.
We haven't, obviously we need to do another cemetery tour one because there is a GMI cadet buried at the city cemetery. There were actually two at one point. One was exhumed and moved back to Florida with his family. But there are also cadets, men who went to the school who are buried there because they obviously died later in life. And so I don't know which pictures you got. Which ones?
So these are just some pictures. This is from David Vaughn's collection. He is a local collector of daguerreotypes and historic photos of soldiers, Confederate soldiers. And so this one, it's unidentified, so we don't know who it is, but we know based on his uniform, he's a cadet. There's another one that...
Yes, I know. Yeah, that one doesn't have a name on it.
Okay,
we have the copy of that.
Okay, so that's another cadet there.
Yeah, you see the kepi style hat he's got on. We can show you. I have the buttons too in just a second. We can show those repros.
Okay.
This
is another one from David Vaughn's collection, and this is Major Thomas H. Bomar from the 38th Regiment Georgia Volunteer Infantry, but he was a cadet as well.
Different style of uniform on that one.
This is another of Vaughn's photos. This one is unattributed.
Very cool.
This one is Cadet L.D. Lamar.
It's one of my favorites. He's
Yeah.
got a pipe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was right here to party. Then you've got another one of David's photos is unidentified. Yeah.
Very cool.
And we got Homer in here. Yep.
There's Homer.
Homer Reynolds.
So Homer Reynolds is buried in the city cemetery, but that's a local boy for sure. His father was Dr. Aristides Reynolds, and they lived down in Powder Springs, but then moved up here later.
Okay. I think those are all the cadets.
All right, I'm going to hand you this box
Okay.
because you can open it.
All right. Ooh, what's in the box?
Things!
Things.
Shiny
All right,
things.
Things, and these are
Repros.
again, reproductions. Now, in the museum, we do have a display of some actual artifacts that were found here by relic hunters of GMI. We've got a brick. And we have a reproduction uniform on a
Yes, mannequin.
Mannequin, and yeah.
The breastplate that you're about to show, the big piece, we actually do, that's a repro, but we do have an original in that case. We had an original donated to us later, so that's what it looked like. And then we've got some buttons.
Buttons. Again, these are all based on originals, but these are reproductions.
Oops, sorry, it's hard for me to zoom in. All right, so it says GMI, and then what does it say? 1851? What's that one?
Probably.
Oh, cadet. It says GMI cadet. Duh.
Yeah, 1851. Yes, it does. And there's some even smaller ones probably say the same thing if they say anything. Oh no, this one says GMI.
And these are more like their cufflink style, almost. But yeah.
And we do have one of our rarest pieces that we have is a kepi from a GMI cadet that we do have in our collection. However, it's in such poor shape we cannot put it on display. And so someday we'd love to have the funds to conserve it, to send it off to be conserved. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. But
yeah.
And then I do know that there is a cadet's jacket, a GMI jacket that at one time was down in Crawfordville at the Alexander H. Stevens State Museum, State Park Museum. But now it's my understanding that it is in the state
repository of their
repository at West Georgia College. So West Georgia University.
Here, I'll take the box.
I'll take it.
That way you can pick up that stuff.
Someday maybe we can get it back here, Marietta.
Maybe. Who knows?
But as we walk up to the conference center, do you want to talk about your story?
I can tell
the
story.
Do you need your notes? Do you want me to hold the camera? Or
I don't need no notes.
Okay.
I'm going to flip the camera around to me, though. All right, everybody. Sorry, you're getting me now. All right, so it's called Brumby Hall. But by 1859, Brumby is, it's real muddy. Hold on, we gotta take a second. Just go along. I can go along the brick. I can walk along the brick. Give me a second so I can walk along the brick very carefully. But it's called Brumby Hall. But by 1859, Brumby is gone. He is forced out due to a scandal. So the age of these guys as cadets, 14 to 25, you got some rambunctious fellas. And so during his tenure, 1851, 1859, you see some uprisings amongst the cadets, complaining about having to go to church because that was a part of their routine, complaining about work and all these other things that are normal. Well, by 1858, there had been a murder in Powder Springs. And this was Albert Lingo, who speared his brother-in-law in downtown Powder Springs. It's a great story. That's a whole nother topic. But the trial was done here in Marietta at the courthouse. And some of the cadets, when time came to give the verdict, asked for leave for 1 to 2 hours to be able to hear the verdict. So they hear the verdict, and they come back about 12 hours later. Some of them a little tipsy. And that's, of course, against regulations. This has caused, since it's kind of like the third strike with the cadets, this has caused such a fervor throughout the state that this well-respected school is not being managed properly in a lot of people's opinions. And this is when you see the state kind of take over control of GMI. Brumby is forced out because they see it as him not managing the students. And so 1859, Brumby has left. You have new commandants, superintendents, whatever, come in to take care of the school. But of course, when Sherman's forces come through 1864, we don't have the school anymore. But we still call it Brumby Hall. And Brumby ends up serving during the Civil War. And then he dies, I forget when, but he's buried in Woodstock. He's not buried here. But yeah, the trial of Albert Lingo, not only is it the death of a man, but it's also kind of a big mark against GMI at that point. Again, that's a whole other... The fact is, it involves a spear and death, so that's really kind of...
It's kind of crazy.
You don't hear a lot of those spearings.
No, but I did find another article that in the same light. And this was from June 2nd, 1858. When did you say that was, Lingo? Do you remember?
I think he murdered the brother-in-law in 1858, so
okay.
That might be part of the story. I don't know.
Okay, so June 2nd, 1858. Well, maybe this is the same.
I think the murder was in April, if I remember that correctly.
Well, hold on, so I can read them all. All right.
Here, please.
It says, and this is from the Natchez Weekly Democrat in Natchez, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. It says, in an unfortunate affair at a military academy, the Augusta Dispatch learns that a difficulty occurred a few days ago between Cadets Beale and Manning of the Georgia Military Institute at Marietta, Georgia, in which Mr. Manning was severely stabbed with a knife, inflicting one or more wounds from which it is thought to be impossible for him to recover. Young Beale left the place immediately, but some of his fellow students are said to be in pursuit of him and will take him back to Marietta if overtaken. Young Beale is from Baldwin County, Georgia, and Manning from the state of Mississippi.
Baldwin County, I think, is where Milledgeville is, if I remember that correctly.
Oh, okay.
But also, before I forget, before we go inside, with the issue with the cadets having built up, that point, the state, when they take over, they also court-martial a bunch of the cadets. So you see some of them desert, some of them expelled, some of them kind of resign their commission, in essence, from the Georgia Military Academy. So that's about 30 cadets at one time. So that's really the big scandal for it pre-war. I'm going to turn around. We're going to walk inside. We are going to go look at something very, very cool. If you have not been in the Hilton, you might not have seen this. hi to my new buddy Frank over there. He's working. But we're coming around the corner. We went to the right. We're going towards the Hamiltons and the, what's the word I'm looking for? Event facilities.
Yes.
So, it's a what? It's a cannon.
One of the things in Civil War circles that GMI is most known for are its cannons. So the cadets had 4 6-pounder howitzers. Make sure I get that right. And then they had 2 additional cannons.
Go by this sign real quick.
Yeah, they had 2 additional cannons as well. So for a total of 6, I believe. And of the 6, 4 we know of the location of. 1, it's confusing. There's a whole mystery behind all these cannons, and but this is an original cannon. The carriage that it's on is not original. That was built for it, but that's one of the original ones. There's one here. There's one at the Confederate Cemetery, which you saw in one of our other videos.
Yeah, the first cemetery one.
Then there are 2 at the state capitol.
Yes.
And then the other 2. One, a good friend of the museum is researching and trying to track down.
Louder voice, please.
Louder voice? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we're inside. I don't want to be too loud.
It's real quiet.
And so one is Michael Hitt is researching to try to find the last of them, I believe. One, I think, and he's told me this whole story and he's going to kill me for not remembering the details. But anyways, Michael Hitt was going to be a lecture that we had at the museum discussing the whole mystery of the GMI cannons and where they are and what happened to them and why and when some came here. This one came here, I think, in 1928. The one at the cemetery we got in 1910. I don't know when they came to the state capitol, but anyways, it's kind of a big story. And so, of course, we had to cancel his lecture because it was going to be this month.
Well, postponed, you know.
Postponed. Yeah, we're not canceled. We're postponing it, absolutely. And so we're going to postpone it for another time when we can open our events up to the public again, to larger groups. But that will be coming. So.
Do you want to tell people about who some of these people are in that picture?
Well,
do you know?
I know one.
I know 2.
You know 2? Well, you go ahead.
Okay, well, you go.
Yeah, I do know 2. Is this Carrie Cox?
It is.
All right, so when they commissioned this portrait to go behind, this mural behind the cannon, Dan Cox, who is our founder of our museum, was involved in doing that here at the conference center. And so somehow he got the artist to include Carrie Cox's son right here.
Well, Dan, Carrie, not his son. That's Carrie.
Oh, I mean, that's,
Yes,
sorry.
Dan's son, Carrie.
Yes,
there we go.
Carrie. And then Dan's right here, right?
Dan's right here. And so.
But I don't know who the other people are.
I had heard a rumor that this one was our former curator back in the day, Linda
maybe.
Schnurr. But Jan, if you're on, which I think you are, I see you, if you could confirm that with me. But also, I didn't notice this cool little thingy when we walked in. Sorry, the glare is really hard. But
this is this an original? I think this is a copy. Maybe it's original. Oh, jeez.
Thank you, Jan. Yes.
Regulations of the Georgia Military Institute from 1862. So these are basically like their school syllabus, and that's a synopsis of courses that they had. They had math, French, English, geography, history, rhetorics, drawing, natural and experimental philosophy, and then goes into some of the things they would need to bring with them. Each candidate will be required to bring with him 2 pairs of high-quartered shoes, 2 pairs of white Berlin gloves, 7 shirts, 4 pairs of drawers, 4 pairs of socks, 4 pocket handkerchiefs, 6 towels, 1 clothes bag, 1 clothes brush, 1 trunk, 1 hairbrush, 1 toothbrush, 1 comb, 1 iron bedstead,
You had to bring your own
1 mattress, single width, 1 mattress cover, and bed strap. Okay. 1 pillow, 2 pillowcases, 2 pairs of sheets for single bed, 2 pairs of blankets for a single bed, 4 pairs of white pantaloons, 1 pair of shoe brushes, 1 pair of suspenders. So, there you go. That's kind of cool.
In the first tour we did at the cemetery, we talked about the Mangers, and so French at GMI was taught by the Mangers. Thank you, Jan, for filling that those spots in. Yeah, this is this one we actually have like our version, a copy of it printed in the back of the case that we have
Right.
at the museum.
And so here are the dormitory buildings. Here's the instructional building. Some
And
more
then-
dorms, possibly an armory, and then Brumby Hall over here.
And then
To the right.
Kennesaw Mountain in the background. Yeah, so oftentimes it was for, and is that Lost Mountain way in the back there too?
Probably, yeah.
And then it was referred to as College Hill. So we are going to walk over one more spot just to have people see that view outside.
Okay.
Because it's too spectacular of a day not
Yes.
to do it. But I'm telling y'all, it's really spooky how quiet it is in here.
It's kind of crazy.
I don't think I've ever been in here.
Go get a room, go prop our feet up, get a movie going,
Get a movie
hide
going.
from the world. This is where I would want to hide.
All right, everybody, here we go. This is the view. I mean, I never get tired of it. And also, I just want to let you guys know, you may think that we're not going to come back here, but this was just part 1. Part 2 will be next week. We'll come
Yeah.
back. We're going to talk about the history of the city club, the country club. And then, you know, we have pictures of the construction here, and I can tell you a story. I do have a story about a death that occurred here. Yes, I do. So we will be back next week, next Friday, 2 p.m. To
There are people golfing. Shh, we gotta be quiet.
I'm gonna try and get us a golf cart for this next time. Fingers crossed.
Oh yeah, the 2 of us on a golf cart. It's gonna be great.
Hey man, that's where I learned to drive, is a golf cart. All right, so we will see you guys next Friday. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Come on, 20 people. We were at 16 last I checked. Come on, 20. Like our Facebook page, like our Instagram page. And so we will, hold on, I'm going to turn it back this way just because it's so nice. So enjoy the day, enjoy the weekend. We will see you guys next week. Thanks.